Hello and welcome. Today we're diving into one of the biggest, most fundamental ideas in all of biology. We're talking about the incredible process that has created every single living thing you've ever seen. We're talking about the birth of a new species.
So let's just jump right in with the big question. Where do new species even come from? I mean, they don't just appear out of thin air, right? No. There's actually a really fascinating step-by-step process at play. And by the end of this, you're going to see exactly how it works. But, before we can even get into how a new species is made, we kind of have to agree on what a species is in the first place. This is ground zero.
Okay, so the main rule we go by is something called the biological species concept. And here's the key. It has nothing to do with how two animals look. It's all about whether they can make babies. And, this is the crucial part, whether those babies can then go on to have their own babies. If they can't, they're different species. It's like nature's ultimate compatibility test.
All right, so with that rule in our back pocket, we can now figure out that exact moment, that tipping point, when a new species is officially born. This is the main event, folks.
The official word for this entire process is speciation. And really, it all boils down to just one core idea. And that idea is reproductive isolation. Remember that phrase? It's going to be important. And this, right here, this is the final exam. This is the moment of truth. Imagine you have two groups that have been separated for, thousands and thousands of years. If you could bring them back together again, and they can't make fertile babies anymore, that's it. Game over. Speciation has happened. You now have two distinct species where you once had one. So how does that happen? What actually causes that great divide in the first place? Let's get into the mechanics of it.
It all comes down to that term we just mentioned, reproductive isolation. This is what happens when some kind of barrier pops up and physically stops members of a population from breeding with each other. This is the wedge that starts to drive them apart.
So what do these barriers look like? Well, you might be picturing a giant canyon or a mountain range, and you're not wrong. But honestly, nature has way more subtle and creative ways of keeping groups apart. Let's look at some cool examples.
So yeah, there are actually a bunch of different types of these barriers. But for now, we're going to zero in on the big three that are super clear and easy to see out in the real world: physical, behavioral, and temporal isolation.
Let's start with the most straightforward one, the one that's easiest to picture: a literal, physical wall between two populations. Take a look at these owls. You've got the northern spotted owl and the Mexican spotted owl. They're really similar. The problem is they're separated by massive physical barriers, like mountain ranges and huge deserts. They just can't get to each other to breed. And so, over countless generations, they've been evolving down their own separate paths. Okay, but what if the two groups live in the same area, maybe even in the same forest? Well, sometimes the barriers are a lot sneakier. Sometimes it's like they just stop speaking the same language. This is such a perfect example of what we call behavioral isolation. The eastern and western meadowlarks look almost identical, right? And their territories actually overlap, but they never ever interbreed. So what gives? It's their song. The female meadowlarks are only attracted to the very specific mating call from their own group. That different song is an invisible but incredibly powerful wall. All right, and for our final example, this barrier has nothing to do with where you are or even what you do. It's all about when you do it. Check out these two skunks. They might live in the exact same habitat, but here's the catch. The eastern spotted skunk breeds in late winter. The western spotted skunk, on the other hand, breeds in the fall. Their timing is completely off. They're like two ships passing in the night, and because their breeding seasons are so different, they're kept totally separate.
So, let's tie all of this together now. Let's recap the entire journey from one single species to two. So here's the story, from beginning to end. First, a single population gets split by some kind of barrier. Could be a mountain, could be a new song, could be a different schedule. Then, because they're isolated, the two groups start evolving on their own. Tiny genetic changes just start piling up over many years. And eventually, they become so different that even if that original barrier disappeared, they just can't produce fertile offspring together anymore. And boom, that's it. Speciation has occurred.
And that kind of leaves us with a really interesting final thought. We've seen how things like mountains and different mating songs can create new species. But it makes you wonder, what about the invisible barriers we're creating today? Things like sprawling cities or highways or even noise pollution. Could these be the things that are quietly driving the next wave of speciation, right here, right now? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.